Once. We have been talking about different schools of philosophy for a number of days in different videos. We just talked about idealism, naturalism, pragmatism, humanism, and existentialism. Now we are going to discuss the last topic in this record. There are lots of philosophies or schools of philosophies, but we will be winding up the topic schools of philosophy by talking about one more school of philosophy, that is Futurism. We can look at what Futurism is and what the educational implications of Futurism, or what is the influence of Futurism in the field of education. Let's look what Futurism is first. Actually, Futurism is not a movement occurred in the field of education. Futurism is a word derived from the Italian word futurismo. It's an artistic and social movement that was originated in Italy in the early 20th century, which focus and emphasize the features of modern youth such as technology, speed, craze, violence, car, aeroplane, etc. If you think about traditional art, you can see that artists were drawing and depicting some natural beauty and something like that. Some kings, queens, princesses, and some historical events and something like that. But some youngsters during the 90s, during the early part of 90s, during the early part of 20th century, started thinking that why should we depict such things? Now we are living in a modern age and we have got different characteristics such as technology, speed, then some dynamic attitude, violence, car race, aeroplane, wrestling. So we do not need these things. Filippo Tommaso Marinetti was one of the apostles of this movement. He told, we were no part of it, the past. We, the young and strong futurists, we did not want the past. Why should we still stick on some traditional aspects? We have got cars, we have got vehicles, we have got aeroplanes, we have got trains, we have got wrestling, we have got technology. So we need something new. We need something adventurous. We want to depict the adventurous heroes, not the kings on horses, not the natural beauty. And this movement is known as Futurism. So Futurism was an artistic movement which emphasizes the need of accepting the elements or the features of modern society in the field of art and drawing. And this is borrowed by educationists. And see, actually, Futurism in education was a movement started in 1975. So when we talk about the recommendations of Futurism in the field of education, we may not be getting any effect, because some of the items forwarded or recommended by Futurists have already been implemented in the field of education nowadays. Still, we can look at the points. Educational implications of Futurism. So if you are asked to tell what is Futurism in education, you can just tell Futurism in education is the thought of some people that we should bring the elements of modern youth into the field of education or teaching learning process. Instead of teaching something traditional, instead of teaching the history, instead of teaching the history of kings, queens and princes, instead of teaching something like that, some stories, we should bring the modern elements or the science of modern youth, the dynamic aspects of modern youth into the field of education. And this is Futurism in education. And we can look at the educational implications of Futurism or the educational aspects put forth by Futurism. And according to Futurism, the features of future educational system would be change in life by global and multicultural pressure. According to Futurism, there will be some change in life globally, and there you can see some sort of multicultural background, multicultural existence. And on the basis of this multicultural nature of the universe, nature of the globe, nature of the world, you have to arrange educational systems in your country. Then obsolete knowledge at a rapid rate or pace. You can see knowledge, the change in knowledge, new knowledge with a rapid rate and pace. There will be changes in the case of knowledge. And sometimes today's theory may be changed tomorrow. And you can see availability of knowledge on your finger. Students of nuclear and working family. Another feature is that there will be a change from joint family to nuclear family system. So you have to keep this point also in your mind when you are arranging educational systems according to Futurism. Then the world full of complicated and interrelated work. And see, according to Futurism, the world of tomorrow will be full of complicated and interrelated work. You can see, if you get a job in an international company, at times you may have to perform different duties. A single person may have to be the manager, sometimes something else, coordinator, then psychologist, trainer, mentor. And this is predicted by Futurists during 1975, and nowadays we are seeing all these things in our society. So, according to futurism, we have to arrange our educational system, or we have to include different things in our educational system, or we have to give education to our youngsters on the basis of these features of the future society, that means the present society for us. So let's look at different aspects. So what is required in future? Oh, now global learning. Global learning. Now, when you are giving education to your students, you should look around the world. Without giving an international standard, nowadays your students cannot survive. Don't think about your locality. There is something called the principle of community centeredness in the case of curriculum construction. But nowadays it is changed. Now you cannot look at the locality, you cannot look at the nature of the society where the student is living. You have to create a global standard in your students. If your teachers, your students will be expecting from you something like giving training to make them globally competitive. So there should be global learning. So nowadays we are giving more importance to English language. You might have learned about Knowledge Commission of India of 2005, and in the report of that commission, it is emphasized to give importance to English, the international language, because now the world is having something called knowledge economy. So you have to make your students, your youngsters, globally competitive. Then only you can improve the economy of your country. So global learning is the current trend according to futurism. Then active learning. The present world needs dynamic personalities. Dynamic personalities with effective communication skill, influential body language, and healthy gestures. So you should not make your learners passive inside the classroom. According to futurists, people need dynamic personality, smart people. So you should be able to make your students as smart as possible. People do not want some passive people. People are in search of dynamic personalities. So active learning should be there according to futurism. Then adventurous learning. As we told, nowadays youngsters are living in an adventurous world. So because they are watching wrestling, car race, horse riding, right? And the current sports stars are dynamic people. And these people are always watching advertisements in which they see some Superman, and some fantastic people. So if you are teaching by making use of some traditional methods, they will not be interested. So you have to make use of adventurous learning situations. You have to bring them for trekking in forest, climbing the mountains. So learning situation should be made adventurous because youngsters, the new generation youngsters are interested in adventurous things because they believe in heroism. So, see, these are not my arguments because I am an idealist, and this is the arguments of the modern people or the futurists. Higher cognitive skills. So we told that the world is full of complicated works. So when you get a job in a multinational company, you may have to solve different types of problems. And nowadays, the owners of different companies are in search of people who have got some crisis management skill. Crisis management has become one of the most needed things in the candidates who seek jobs. So when you provide education to your youngsters, you should provide higher cognitive skills, that you should make them able to manage different types of crisis, different types of critical situations, different types of complicated circumstances. If they are not able to manage such crises, they will never be hired by any employer in this world, according to futurists. Then service learning. Now service has become paid. In the past, service was service. Now, service has become paid. In the past, if teachers were going to give some lectures or classes, they never asked for remuneration. Now, everything has become paid. Writing, there is something called freelance writing. Now people are in search of some candidates who can write blogs for them. So if you are able to write blogs, you can write blogs for yourselves and you can write blogs for others. Because each and every company has got some website and they need to publish blogs at regular intervals on different topics, different niches. So they are in need of some people who can write blogs. In the past, writing for someone else was a service, and now writing for someone is a service which is paid. So nowadays, according to futurists, you should provide service learning to your students. Then past, present, future focus. Why? We told that futurist does not believe in past. Then what is this past, present, future focus? Here, nowadays, change is rapid. You can be a winner in the business competition only if you are able to foresee Only if you are able to foresee something which is going to come into the situation in future. And for predicting the future aspects, you should look at the present and you should look back the past. If you make an analysis between past and present, then sometimes you can predict the future. So when you give education to your youngsters, you should teach them past, present, future, not as history, but you should make them able to analyze past and present to decide or to foresee future. That is past, present, future focus. Lifelong learning, and this is not the type of lifelong learning put forth by Mahatma Gandhi or put forth by some great people in the past, but see, I happened to read a news before a couple of years or before a few years, 4 or 5 years. The news was just like this: Infosys were dismissing some of the employees just because their skills were outdated. And see, in the field of IT, information technology, new items are coming and coming. You can see changes. So these people were experts in the past, but in the field of information technology, lots of change have come, and these people are not that much experts, or these people haven't got that much expertise in new technologies just as the youngsters or the new generation guys have got. So if you get a job in a multinational company, there is no guarantee. You may be ousted, you may be thrown out of the ecosystem if you are not updating your knowledge and skills. So when you are giving education to your youngsters, you should make them aware that they should go on learning new things even after getting a job. So lifelong learning should be there according to Futurism. Then whole person education. What is this whole person education? This is something like all-round development. You should change the attitude of the students. You should teach their outlooks. You should give them physical development. You should give them mental development. You should give them personality. You should make them model in almost all aspects of life. That is whole person education. Then coping with diversity. And this is also something important. You can see one of the pillars of education according to UNESCO is learning to live together. In this globalized world, you may not be getting a job in a society which has got the same cultural backgrounds just as in your society. You may be forced to work in a country where the culture is entirely different from the culture of your society. So during the early days itself, you should make your students able to cope up with diversity. They should be able to live with any person in this universe. They should be able to manage manage, or they should be able to adjust with diversity, because there is cultural diversity nowadays. Then general education, and here it means that even if people are getting some specialized education, they should be provided some general skills. For example, even if some people are getting some science education, they should get some language education, then psychology, because all the fields, all the walks of life in this business world need psychologists for psychological knowledge, then social knowledge, communication skill, linguistic skill. So general education should be provided to each and every person. Then transdisciplinary education should be there. And this is a modern trend. As I told, in the past we were giving education on the basis of a similar disciplines. For example, when I was a student of functional English, our some papers were there, some papers like British history as a supplementary paper. But these people tell that, futurists tell that there should be transdisciplinary education. As we told, if you are able to give language education as a supplementary paper with science education, it will be useful for people. So there should be new combination of courses according to futurists. Then personalized learning, and this is something something introduced by modern psychologists. There should be individualized learning. There should be individualized curriculum. There should be individualized pedagogy. Then education for dynamic communication. And see, now I think you might have watched different videos on YouTube. Some people who are giving some personality classes, some demonstration classes, and then I think you might have watched some videos of some speech contests. You might have looked, or you might have got one common element, that all these people are keeping some dynamic communication skill, some vibrant body language, then charismatic style of presentation, dynamic voice modulation and facial expression. So nowadays people are attracted by such people. Dynamic communication skill is the need of the hour nowadays. Even if you have got great stuff of knowledge, you will not be hired by, or you will not be appointed by the employers if you haven't got some dynamic communication skill. Then, as we told, education should be two youthful elements, that is adventurous elements. Then small structure, it means classes should be small in structure, because nowadays people are living in nuclear families. So if you are making a classroom congested, these students, these youngsters will not be able to adjust with such a situation. So small structure should be there. And this is something about futurism in education.